Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, desolate, serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, stooges. I'm a useful idiot, and today I'd like to do a video about music. And as my regulars know, music is my first love, and I occasionally do videos instead of about geopolitics, about music. And it's usually about somebody passing, and this time is no exception, unfortunately. And now we have the passing of Scott Ashton, the drummer for the Stooges, and also the drummer for the lesser-known Sonic Rendezvous band. And Scott Ashton was 64, I believe, and has had a lot of health complications since 2011, and has now passed on. So now all the original Stooges, Ron Ashton on guitar, Scott Ashton on drums, and Dave Alexander on bass, the original Stooges on their first two records, have all passed on now. So the Stooges are dead. Long live the Stooges. And as you can see behind me, here's the lineup in 1969 when they released their amazing Funhouse record. The Stooges formed in 1967 as the Psychedelic Stooges, and then shortened their name to the Stooges, or how they became known later, Iggy and the Stooges, in 1968-69. In 1969 is when they released their first record, and then the following year, 1970, they released Funhouse, both masterpieces. And then the second incarnation of the Stooges, with James Williamson on guitar, but still with the Ron Ashton, Scott Ashton brothers in the group, recorded 1973's masterpiece, Raw Power. And in my echelon of top 10 rock records of all time, both Funhouse from 1970 and Raw Power from 1973 are on that list. They are bold, loud, brash, visionary records, and unfortunately not everyone's cup of tea, but time has caught up with the Stooges, and now they are seen as the prototype of what became known as punk and punk jazz in later years. And I find it fascinating to see that the Ashton brothers and Iggy reunited the Stooges with Mike Watt on bass, and have been touring since 2003. And normally I don't really approve of these old dinosaur rock bands who have lost relevance going out on tour decades after decade, or even decades later. But in the Stooges' case, I make an exception, because for them it is a triumphant redemption. They used to play to mixed audiences, got few chances to actually play, and had mixed responses from audiences. And now to see the Stooges out there playing in front of 10, 20, 30, 100,000 people is really heartwarming, and Iggy certainly deserves it, and the Ron Ashton, Scott Ashton brothers certainly deserved it. In my understanding, two of the nicest guys to ever play rock. It's always amazing to find out a band that plays as hard and brutal as the Stooges turn out to be such cupcakes. And Scott Ashton, in his simple way, was just a prototype, good guy rock drummer. And that's one of the things that's special about Scott Ashton, is that he wasn't special. He was just a rock drummer, the right place at the right time, and had the right idea and the right sound. And it's hard to imagine, even without very much technique. In fact, he'd only barely learned to play drums in the last year or two. Ends up creating an unmistakable rhythmic propulsion on Stooges and Funhouse albums, and then creates an otherworld, nightmarish rock and roll world of unusual percussion in the Raw Power album in 1973. And so now we have all three original band members, Stooges, dead. Rest in peace, Scott Ashton. You will be remembered for your work in the Stooges, as well as his work with the Sonic Rendezvous band. And if the Stooges are lesser known to a lot of people, the Sonic Rendezvous band are even more obscure. Spin-off of two other great bands that came out of the Detroit high-energy scene that spawned the Stooges, the MC5 and SRC, And Fred Sonic Smith from the legendary MC5 had a group called Sonic Rendevous Band, and Scott Ashton played drums for that group for 3 or 4 years. And so to have 2 legendary bands under his belt is quite an accomplishment. So Scott Ashton, you will be missed. I will be listening to the Stooges tonight, and your unmistakable, unforgettable drumming. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.